Hi everyone, welcome to the Self-Management Solutions Guide to BCBA and BCABA Experience Hours Tracking Sheets. Today I'm going to review how to use the tracking sheets for independent fieldwork, practicum, and intensive practicum experience and supervision hours for a single supervisor. If you're planning on receiving supervision from more than one supervisor, check out our tutorial for the multiple supervisor tracking sheets. You'll need to report supervision from each supervisor separately, so you will want to have these numbers easily accessible when it comes time to register for your BCBA or BCABA exam. Today I'm going to use the independent fieldwork tracking sheet as the model for the tutorial. At the end of the tutorial, I'll review a couple slight differences for practicum and intensive practicum tracking sheets. However, most of the functions on each of these tracking sheets is going to be identical. As a side note, these tracking sheets should in no way replace the tracking forms, the verification forms provided by the BACB on the website. That website should be your primary source of information in regards to requirements for accumulating experience and supervision hours. This is simply meant as a support to help you keep track of where you are in the process. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at the top row of this independent fieldwork tracking sheet. Here you will find all of the categories necessary for tracking. The first column is going to show the supervisory period. Note that for independent fieldwork, each supervisory period consists of 2 weeks. I'd recommend writing in the start date for each of your weeks in the supervisory period, which will help when transferring or matching these hours to your experience hours verification tracking forms. Directly to the right of the weeks, you will find the columns for recording experience hours. Notice there are 2 columns for experience hours. This is because the BACB requires that no more than 50% of your overall experience hours can come from direct implementation of treatment services. The column to the right of this is for direct and indirect experience hours. These consist of supervisory type tasks. You can find a sample list of these types of experience on the BACB website. There's no limit to percentage of experience that comes out of this category. So next we have our 2 blue columns. A quick note about all of the colored cells on this sheet is that you cannot type in any colored cell. They contain formulas and they're locked to protect the sheet from losing its automated functions. The first column here is going to calculate your experience accrued each supervisory period. And so on this sheet, that's going to be every 2 weeks. And the next column will show you the amount of supervision needed based on your experience hours acquired during that supervisory period. You can compare the goal column with your actual supervision hours accrued each supervisory period. So continuing on to the next 2 columns, this is where you'll find your supervision columns. First, we have our individual supervision, and then to the right of that is going to be group supervision. And again, another restriction here, the BACB requires that no more than 50% of supervision each supervisory period can come from that group supervision. So we have those separated so that, again, you can double check yourself. And finally, our last column here is going to be your actual total supervision accrued for each supervisory period. So let's go ahead and start adding some numbers into the sheet so I can show you how the automated functions work. I'm going to start by adding my week start date, so January 23rd, and then filling in my experience hours for that week. Let's say I had 10 hours of direct implementation and 15 hours of direct and indirect experience. So as of right now, I have 25 hours of experience so far this period. Let's then also say that I meet with my direct supervisor for 1 hour individually. In my next week, we'll put the start date as January 30th. I also accrue 10 hours of direct implementation and 15 hours of other experience. So now I've totaled 50 hours of experience for this first supervisory period, which also means that I need a total of 2.5 hours of supervision. Since I've gathered 1 hour so far, this means I need another 1.5 hours. So let's say I meet with my individual supervisor again, one-on-one for an hour, and then I attend a group supervision for a half an hour. My actual supervision now matches my goal supervision, so I'm all set. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the year totals. Here I can find my overall experience, my overall supervision goal, and my overall supervision. Again, the supervision goal is just there to double check yourself and ensure you've received enough supervision based on your experience hours. You will also find here a countdown tool that will quickly show you how many hours you have remaining until you're able to register for your BCBA or BCABA exam. These yellow colored cells are going to be the one exception on the sheet. You can erase these cells that do not apply to you if you would like. So if you're working towards your BCBA, go ahead and erase the BCABA hours remaining. Just be careful not to delete both of them. Let's watch what happens to these numbers now as I enter hours into my form. So what you can see here is that the experience hours, supervision goal, and actual supervisions are counting up. And then you can see that the experience hours remaining, of course, are counting down. So before we end, let's really quickly look at a few differences on the practicum and intensive practicum tracking sheets. Looking at the practicum tracking sheet first, you'll notice that now each supervisory period is only 1 week, and then additionally the supervision goal is going to be higher and your hours remaining is going to be lower. Similarly, on the intensive practicum sheet, we again have each supervisory period being 1 week, supervision goal is again even higher, and now the hours remaining is even lower. And then finally, there's one additional feature that you'll find on this intensive practicum sheet, and that's the number of contacts per week. With the intensive practicum, there's an additional requirement that says you need to meet with your supervisor at least twice a week, and so this will help you keep track of that requirement. All right, and that is it. Hopefully this sheet helps make your tracking needs a little bit easier for your hours. When you're ready to learn how to fill out year 2 and year 3 of this tracking sheet, go ahead and find our tutorial on transferring hours over to new years.